Hey, what's up guys? Combat Critic here. In this video I want to give my pick for this fight which is scheduled for UFC 287 between Gilbert Durinho Burns and Jorge Masvidal. So Jorge Masvidal coming out of a loss to Colby Covington, and then he also fought Covington outside the ring, and he has been getting into legal troubles and all those things. And on the other hand we had Gilbert Burns, who in his last fight lost to Khamzat Chimaev, but still his stock actually went up, and I believe he is more hungry now to get the belt. Now let's see who I pick in this fight. Let's get started. So here I have the records of both these guys. If we start with Gilbert Burns, so he has had 26 fights. Out of these 26 fights he has won 21 of them and lost just 5. Out of those 21 wins that he has, 6 have come via knockout, 9 by submission, and 6 by decision. So we know Gilbert Burns is pretty strong in BJJ. He has a really solid submission game. So this from his record, he has had 9 wins by submission. Even though in recent times nobody really dared to go on the ground with Gilbert Burns, but still he has the most submissions on his resume out of all these 3 submissions, knockout and decision. And if we talk about the 5 losses, 2 have come via knockout, none by submission, and 3 have come via decision. So in the losses, I think nobody dared grapple with this guy, so he has had no losses via submission, and he has had losses by knockout and by decision. Now let's talk about this man right here, Jorge Masvidal. So he has had 51 fights, which is a lot comparing with some of these other guys. In fact, 99% of these UFC guys will not have 51 career fights in their professional career. So Jorge has a lot of experience in professional fighting. He has had 30 wins and 16 losses. Out of these 35 wins, he has 16 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, and 17 by decision. So he's had very few wins by submission, and this is actually the strong point of Gilbert Burns. So the strength of Gilbert Burns is submission, and that is the weakness of Jorge Masvidal. Now let's talk about the 16 losses. 2 losses have come via knockout, 2 by submission, and 12 have come via decision. So we can almost say with pretty certainty that if Jorge loses, it will be a decision. And let's see some of the other stats of these 2 guys, starting with the height. So 5 feet 10 inches for Gilbert Burns and 5 feet 11 inches for Jorge Masvidal. So 1 inch height advantage for Jorge. Weight is pretty 170. Weight is even for both these guys, 170 pounds. Both of these fighters were former lightweights who moved up to welterweight. Now reach is 71 inches for Gilbert Durinho Burns and 74 inches for Jorge. So another 3-inch advantage for Masvidal. Both guys are orthodox stance fighters. If we talk about the age, so Jorge is the older fighter and Gilbert Durinho Burns is relatively younger, even though both these guys have had a lot of experience in fighting. Now let's talk about some of the striking numbers. So the strikes landed per minute, which signifies the number of significant strikes that you land on your opponent per minute on average, is 4.11 for Jorge Masvidal compared to 3.42 for Gilbert Burns. So Jorge will have an advantage in this department. Then we come to the striking accuracies, 48% for Jorge and also 48% for Gilbert Burns. So both these guys are evenly matched in the striking accuracy department. Strikes absorbed per minute, which signifies the number of strikes that you absorb from your opponent per minute on average, is 3.17 for Gilbert Durinho Burns and 3.06 for Jorge Masvidal. So we see that the number which is lower is better because you are absorbing lesser strikes. So in this case, Jorge has a slight advantage. Striking defense is 54% for Gilbert Burns and it is 64% for Masvidal. So again, advantage to Masvidal in this department as well. Overall, if we talk about the striking, we know that Jorge Masvidal will have an advantage looking at the strikes landed per minute, the strikes absorbed per minute, and the striking defense numbers. So in the striking department, I think this man has an advantage clearly, and he also has a 3-inch reach advantage and a 1-inch height advantage. So Gilbert Durinho Burns might he might get into trouble if he just tries to strike with Gilbert Masvidal. Now let's talk about some of the wrestling, grappling, and submission statistics of both these guys. So first of all, we have takedown average, which is 2.03 for Gilbert Burns compared to 1.44 for Masvidal. So advantage to Gilbert Burns in the takedown average department. Takedown accuracy is 35% for Gilbert Burns and 59% for Masvidal. So Masvidal has an advantage in the takedown accuracy department. Takedown defense is 47% for Gilbert Burns and 74% for Masvidal. So again, Masvidal has an advantage in the takedown defense department. Submission average is 0.6 for Gilbert Burns, whereas it is half that number, that is 0.3 for Masvidal. So again, we know that Gilbert Burns is a great submission artist and he has had a pretty good BJJ career prior to joining the UFC. So an advantage in submissions for Gilbert Burns. Overall, if I talk about the wrestling aspect, I think Masvidal is better. But if you talk about the grappling and submissions only, then Gilbert Burns is a much better, much complete fighter on the ground compared to Gilbert Masvidal. Now let's talk about some of the past performances of these two guys. Starting with Gilbert Burns. In his last fight, he beat Neil Magny via an arm triangle choke in the first round. So this was really good fight for this guy, Gilbert Burns, because before this fight, he lost to Khamzat Chimaev in a 3-round decision. This was a good fight and Gilbert had Khamzat hurt, but then Khamzat came back and did good and won the fight. A lot of people became fans of Gilbert Burns after watching this fight. Even though he lost this fight, his stock really didn't go down. In fact, it actually went up. And before that, he beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in a 3-round fight. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is a striker, one-dimensional, similar to what Jorge Masvidal was, but I think in recent times Jorge Masvidal has improved on his wrestling a bit. So if this fight is an indication how the upcoming fight between these two gentlemen will go, so based on this fight alone, you can pick Gilbert Durinho Burns to win this fight, and the game plan will be the same which was for this fight, which is to take Stephen Wonderboy down and use the wrestling of Gilbert Burns. Before that, Kamaru Usman TKO'd Gilbert Burns in the 3rd round. This was a good fight. Gilbert had him hurt in the 1st round, but then Kamaru came back and won the fight. Before that, Gilbert Burns won a unanimous decision against Tyron Woodley in a 5-round fight. This was back in 2020. Before that, he beat Damian Maia via TKO in the 1st round, and he beat Gunnar Nelson via unanimous decision in a 3-round fight. Alex Kunchenko he beat via unanimous decision in a 3-round fight. So pretty solid resume for Gilbert Burns. He only lost to Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman since August of 2019. Pretty solid guy. Now let's talk about Jorge Masvidal. So he is on a 3-fight losing streak, as you can see. In his last fight, he lost to Colby Covington via unanimous decision in a 5-round fight. Colby really imposed his wrestling and won a comfortable unanimous decision. Jorge Masvidal had him hurt via a punch, and that punch knocked Colby down, but it was not enough to win the fight, and he lost a clear-cut unanimous decision. After the fight, he got in an altercation with Colby, and these two guys are having some problems. Before that, Kamaru Usman knocked him out via punch in the 2nd round. We all saw this fight. This was KO of the year, in my opinion. And before that, Kamaru also beat him via clear-cut unanimous decision. I think it was 50-44 for one of the judges. It was a 5-round fight, and Jorge really couldn't stop the wrestling of Kamaru Usman. So in recent times, Colby has lost in the wrestling department. Jorge has lost in the wrestling department to Colby as well as Kamaru Usman in this fight. So I think the game plan for Gilbert Burns should be to emulate what these two guys have done to Jorge Masvidal and win a clear-cut unanimous decision. Before that, if we talk about Jorge's record, he beat Nate Diaz via TKO doctor stoppage in the 3rd round. This was a great fight between two legends. And before that, we all saw this Ben Askren flying knee 5-second knockout. Everybody who knows about MMA has seen this clip. Before that, he beat Darren Till via KO in 2019 in the second round. This is the fight that really catapulted Masvidal's stardom. And before that, he lost to Wonderboy Thompson via unanimous decision in a 3-round fight. Lost to Damian Maia via split decision in a 3-round fight. And if we talk about these two guys, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Damian Maia, you can see them here. So Gilbert Burns beat Damian Maia via TKO in the first round, and he also beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson via decision unanimous. So the guys that Jorge has lost to, those guys have lost to Gilbert Burns. So Gilbert Burns clearly has an advantage, also being the younger fighter. And I think because Masvidal has had a lot of success in his career, especially after this Ben Askren fight, Nate Diaz fight, he has made a lot of money. He has his own MMA promotion. This guy is sailing on yachts and going on vacations. So I don't really think this man has the hunger anymore. So this is the reason why I'm picking Gilbert Burns to win this fight. I don't think he'll be able to finish Masvidal's, because Masvidal is a really hard guy to finish. He really got finished by Kamaru Usman, but then Kamaru Usman is also, he was the number 1 pound for pound. So that is why Kamaru was able to KO Masvidal. I don't think Gilbert Burns can KO Masvidal, nor can he submit, even though he has a great ground game, but I don't think he'll be able to submit Masvidal. I think he'll win via unanimous decision, and really we'll get to see a recap of last few fights of Jorge Masvidal, where he is doing good in the striking department, but then he is unable to control the wrestling of his opponent. I think in this fight, Gilbert Burns will shoot takedowns on him and will score the rounds that way. So I'm picking Gilbert Durinho Burns to win via unanimous decision. That's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'll see you in the next one.